Hello and welcome back to the Out of Spec Podcast. I'm your host, Isaiah, and today we're doing another debrief with the best team, your favorite team. What other team would it be other than Team EQS, my team? And today we're going to go through our strategy, our good stops, bad stops, mass stops, just every aspect of the I-90 Surge. If you haven't caught up already, the I-90 Surge is where we took 10 vehicles, 9 EVs, 1 combustion vehicle, on Interstate 90 from Seattle all the way to Boston, more than 3,000 miles. If you want to see that, everything will be linked in the description. Jordan, Sebastian, how are you guys doing?
Doing well.
I'm excellent. Sebastian enjoyed the trip so much he got an EQS. So
there, you're in an EQS right now. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I still have a little PTSD from that, so I felt like, oh, my back hurts again. But no, all good. It was a great drive.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we had the best. We had the best drive, I think.
Yeah, honestly, good mix of efficiency, speed, and comfort.
Yes, especially speed.
We'll get it. We'll go into that in a second.
Ouch!
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Shots fired.
Wyoming is a big state.
I can't even believe that every single team so far has asked, like, what happened there? And I was just like, you thought it was the Autobahn. Like, you gotta forgive us. But
I don't know.
Jordan,
we were asleep. It's German.
Sebastian, if you guys could introduce yourselves, what you guys, your relation to EVs, what your excitement brought you to the I-90 Surge, and kind of what your reaction was when Kyle said, hey, I need you to drive 3,000 miles across the United States in an electric car.
I have been writing about cars for a long time. I started at more than 10 years ago now, which is terrifying. Wrote for Wired and The Verge and a ton of other various car publications, and now I have a YouTube channel and all that stuff. And I just purchased my first EV. I got a Model 3 Performance, so that has been fun. Yeah, so I knew Kyle from the car journalism world, right into him on drives and things, and I think I'd been talking to him about the Tesla, and when I ordered it, he's like, a few weeks later, he was like, hey, do you want to come do this drive across the country? And I was like, sure. Tell me more. I think I said yes before I asked for more details, which maybe I should have asked for more answers, but no, it was great. And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. I didn't know what car I was going to get, though. I didn't find that out until like 3 days before.
So I've been, my name is Sebastian. I've been working in automotive industry for a couple of years now, working in EV charging infrastructure actually right now. And, it was somewhere beginning of September, got a call from Kaya. He's like, hey, do you want to drive across the country? I was like, hell yeah. Like, that has been on my bucket list, right? Like, Germany, living now in the US, obviously driving across the country is sort of one of the top listing things you want to do. However, it wasn't until literally like 3 days before the weekend, or for the Friday, on the Wednesday, I was like, I texted actually with you guys. I was like, hey, are we actually driving nonstop, or do we have hotels on the way, right? Like I'm sure we have hotels, right? And I didn't really know the scope. I didn't know that it was like nonstop, and but yeah, was a great experience.
Awesome. I'm glad.
There's something about Germans and driving across the country. Germans love driving across America, like the West and the big state. I don't know what it is, something about freedom, driving across the country. But I used to live in Colorado, and we'd have German tourists coming in, and, Mercedes Sprinter vans that were all adventured out that they had shipped to America to drive across the country. And it's like, okay, you guys love it.
Now, first, let's kind of get into some of your impressions. I say you're acting like I wasn't in the vehicle at the time as well. But placement of the vehicles, right? We know Taycan, number one. Model 3 followed right after. I think one of the big ones, the Lucid Air, was actually falling behind even before that they lost power. So kind of what were you guys anticipating placement in terms of the vehicles? And did you think the EQS would place as well as it did comparatively.
John, you want to start?
You can go first. I want to look something up real quick because we had
Okay, sure.
we had our notes, and I want to find the.
So, I mean, I can tell you from so I've owned an EQE for over a year. I've done many thousands of miles, which and the EQE EQS it's comparable. It's the EQE has a smaller battery. I know what the car is capable of. You mentioned the Lucid. I was pretty confident that the Lucid is better, was faster. I mean, just based on paper, it's an 800-volt car. It is has a bigger battery. It has more peak charging speed, and it's supposed to be the most efficient EV on the market. So, on theory, this car should have been, number one or number two. I didn't really know how the Taycan compared. Didn't really know the Taycan was as good as it is actually as it performed. But I thought we would be like somewhere up there.
Yeah, I just pulled up before the race. I think Other Jordan put together an ABRP, a better route planner estimate for everybody. And the Lucid was estimated to be the fastest at about 45 hours. And the Mercedes was estimated to be the second fastest at about 46. And I think that was not taking into account the new faster charging speed of the Taycan. It was using the old Taycan charging speed, which is why it was so, it was further back. And I think if the Lucid had working chargers spaced out at the right place across the country, they would have done well. But the problem with that car is the curve, the charge curve falls off so quickly that, yeah, it charges fast to 30%. And then after that, it just craters. And so if you have to go to a 65% charge in that car, it takes a while. And I wonder if it takes longer than the EQS does to get the same amount. If you have to go, because at one point we put 100 kilowatts in the car. If you had to put 100 kilowatts in the Lucid, how fast would it do that? And would it be as fast as the Mercedes? I don't know the answer.
That's a good point, Jordan. Right? I remember at some stop where we were next to the Lucid, and it was charging with like 60 or 70 kilowatt or something. Like I don't even think we even hit this when we were at 90%, right?
Yeah, we were at 50 kilowatts at 95%, which is like the BMW was getting that at 60. Or, and it was just, that's the other thing to talk about. But the Lucid, the Lucid was really, and I drove the Lucid from Boston back to Denver for Kyle. And so I got a bunch of time in that, and it charged fast for a while, and then it just plummets. And so if they could have charged at like the supercharger stations that are, 80 miles apart and just jump from one to the next, then yeah, they would have done great. But I think that car was let down by its charging at the higher end and, a BMS that had problems.
Well, let's kind of get into some of the numbers here. So it took us 49 hours, 28 minutes to get from Seattle to Boston. We were so close to the Model S Plaid. Rats. That race was a lot closer than I anticipated. Were you guys feeling the same way? I thought it would be much more spread out, at least everyone in maybe an hour apart. But everything from the Model 3 up into the Ioniq to the Model S Plaid to the EQS was pretty compact.
I think everyone, even the ICE car was compact. Honestly, I would have thought they're going to be so much faster, like 10, 12 hours faster. But surprisingly, they're not, right? The ICE versus the Taycan is, that's neglectable. It's like 2 hours. It's a rounding error, basically, on giving the distance.
Yeah.
I thought it's crazy, really crazy how compact everything was. Minus after I think the Genesis, and there was definitely more like a gap.
Right.
Yeah, the interesting lesson from all of it was the Porsche aside, because I think that really is something unique with what they're able to do, is other than the BMW and the old Tesla, really, you could have bought any of those and made that trip and been fine. And some of them were a little faster, but the Model 3 took exactly 48 hours. Took 2 days and 2 minutes to get there. And we were 2 days, we were an hour and 20 minutes further back than that, which is what, 4%? Like that's stopping for a meal and stopping for a little extra time over the course of what should have been a 4-day drive.
Right.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
And even the Genesis, and so I'm interested in hearing from you guys about which one would you want to road trip in, because personally, I would rather do fewer stops and longer stops, which is what the Mercedes seems to be designed for. Whereas the Model 3 is much more optimized for lots of short stops, hopping from station to station, if you really want to optimize it.
And I mean, we can open up the whole discussion about charging strategy, right? On if you, there's one thing though, and you mentioned all cars are comparable. When I was watching the video, it looked like some of the teams put really a lot of effort in their strategy though. They were calculating current consumption and then going constantly on plug share, looking big, and like taking off all the AC and going into the way into the BMS. I think you could have put anyone in our car, and they would probably have done this. They would probably even been faster if it just followed the car instead of what we did at some point, or maybe getting pulled over. I think though we had somewhat of a lazy strategy that was just kind of foolproof. Just follow the car, and really, very, very simple strategy. So
I was kind of amused looking back at it and watching the video again, because at the beginning we were basically like, we're going to trust the car, and then 12 hours in we're like, we don't think the car knows what it's talking about, and then another day later it's like, no, we should have listened to the car all along, and we would have been better. And the other thing we said at the beginning was, we're going to drive it and use all the stuff. We're going to use the heated seats and the massaging seats and the ventilated seats and the big screens. We're going to use all the stuff because that's what this car is designed for. And I was watching the video and I was shocked at the i7, and they're like trying to turn everything off and turn off the HVAC to try and maximize. It's like, you're going to spend all that money on this big luxury car and not use all the stuff?
Right.
Like, even if it cost us 20 minutes, I'm like, I'm going to use the massaging seats. I'm not gonna turn that off. That's crazy. And I could see that in the the Model 3 or something, but even then they didn't really have to, And so I wonder how much time you can really save by turning all that stuff off. And it's like, well, if you just stayed at the charger for an extra 30 seconds, you wouldn't have to worry about that.
I'll start off. You asked what other car I'd be in. I'd probably stay in the EQS or the Lucid. I'm interested in seeing what that vehicle would have did if maybe it followed the Lucid's route planner fully, and the Lucid team didn't really go by draining the battery to 0% and then charging to 80 and back to 0, which then led them to having to be on the side of the road and being towed. But I think the EQS route planner, for the most part, did pretty well compared to the other teams that I've talked to. A lot of them, at least someone on the team, was doing extensive research on its charging curve and how much time they should spend on each vehicle. And of course, there are some variables, right? Things would change during the race, right, versus on paper. But for the most part, everyone was really looking at what the vehicle should do to make sure that they're the most efficient with their time. And for us, it really was all right, we're trusting what the EQS can do. And we talked about this earlier with Alex from Motor Trend, but Mercedes really built this vehicle for someone who likes the ICE S-Class. They want an EV. You get the EQS, and there really isn't a complex, a change, right? Where you have to do a lot of thinking and make a lot of changes in how you use the vehicle. It really is, all right, Mercedes, I want to go here, and you show me the way.
Yeah, I ran into a woman when I was driving the Lucid back who had an EQE SUV, and she had stopped and she was asking. Then we were talking about her car, and she had stopped. She had driven out of her way, like an extra 5 minutes or something, to go to a 350 kilowatt charger, which already doesn't, versus a 150, which already in a Mercedes doesn't help you that much. But she plugged in at 40%. And so it would make no difference whatsoever to go to the extra charger. And that got me thinking about the EQS and the charge curve. And it's really designed so that whenever you plug in, it's going to give you a decent charge. There are people who think, 40%, that's letting it run low, right? That's for regular people. They might think that. And if you plug in the Lucid at 40%, it's going to be terrible. Your charging curve is awful from 40% on. But the Mercedes is going to be pretty decent. And if you're going from 40 to 80, it's not that much faster than from 20 to 60, right? The same amount of battery. And so I think Mercedes has really gone out of its way to say, okay, we're not going to be the fastest raw charging, but we're going to give you the best charging experience regardless of how you do it or when you plug in, which I think for that customer and for most, probably not the people watching this podcast, honestly, but most regular people buying an EV, that's how they're going to use it. And so when people say, how fast does it charge? And you say, well, from 10 to 80%, it does this at this temperature, blah, blah, blah. That's not what they're asking. They're saying, when I plug it in, how long do I have to be there? And in the Mercedes, your answer is going to be fairly consistent, regardless of how much charge you're putting in, right? 20 to 40% is going to be similar to 40 to 60% because of the curve is so flat. And so I think from a regular people usability, that's what Mercedes was going for. And I really like that. I think the Teslas are so good because they have the charging network and because its predictions as far as what charge you're going to arrive at is so reassuring. But, I think the Mercedes is designed to make it so you don't have to think, which is exactly what that car is for.
I mean, I don't know about you guys. I've done quite a lot of road trips with friends, family who don't drive an EV, also who don't want to drive an EV. And if I would go, let's say I'm with 4 people in a car and I'm going to go, it's like, we're going to arrive with like 2% charging and don't worry. Let's just turn off the AC a little bit. They would kill me, like they would say like, I don't want to drive with you anymore. We're going to get a gas car next time. That would have been, I know that's I heard that before. So that's why, and also when talking to the normal EV owner, it's like they want to charge at 20-30%. Like they don't.
Yeah, 25%.
Really
that's the number I think of. Because if you think about, where most people, when people drive a regular gas car, right, they either let it get to empty and the little light comes on, and then they'll go for another 30 miles, and then, I guess I should fill up, right? And that's like the out of spec style. And then most people are like, a quarter of a tank, I better stop. Especially on a road trip, which is what you should do in a gas car on a road trip. Because it's like, if you can't find a gas station, it's like there's no harm in stopping a little earlier. And so the correct out of spec EV charging way to arrive at 2%, if your estimate is absolutely bang on every time, which I think with the Teslas you can say it is, and everybody else maybe not, because the experience we had in part of the reason we kept having relatively high charging arrivals was because I certainly was not entirely confident in the predictions that it gave. And it felt like they were about 10% off. And I think most of that was due to the speeds we were going. And my guess on that is in Germany, you go the speed limit. If the speed limit's 130K, you're going 130K. In the US, if the speed limit's 70, you're going 80. And so if the computer is saying, well, the speed limit is 70 miles an hour, so you should go 70, and it estimates off of that, which I bet is what it's doing, that would explain why it was off by 10% every time. So it would be interesting to sort of look at how that calculation works, and if it could look at, you're going 8 miles an hour above the speed limit, on the highway, maybe I'll adjust my thing, because I think that's what Tesla does. I think Tesla takes that into account.
I think, and you're right. At the beginning, the car was, I think, too optimistic, right? And
Because the hills,
and then
the mountains, maybe.
and then we got scared and like did like an additional stop. And I don't know if we want to go into the detail, but I think like the second or third stop, we went out of our way to that Walmart, which was like 15 minutes off the highway, and like 3 out of 4 chargers weren't working, which was like the worst stop ever. Probably cost us an hour. And the car wasn't planning for that one, right? Like we took it because we were like, we're not gonna make it. Because the consumption went down like not more than we thought it would. And I think probably the calculations were off a little bit. I can see that being because of our speed limit, and maybe the car was full, and maybe wind.
Or the wind. Yeah, we had there were a lot of people and a lot of 70,000 pounds of supplies.
yeah. we were the supply car for the entire for all the other cars. So
which is props to the EQS, because well, the S class is big in general, but the EQS is I don't know if you call it a hatchback or a fastback or whatever. I think a hatchback is probably fair, but it's a massive car and it's a hatchback, and so you could fit a ton of stuff in it.
You can fit 6 moving boxes into it, definitely.
Yeah, it's so massive. And really, the only downside of it is how it looks, especially from the front in brown. It's better in brown than it is in black. I'll say that. Black it's just terrible.
I like the color.
It was an interesting trim and spec, I'll say.
What did Kyle keep calling it? Hearing aid brown?
Yeah, hearing aid brown.
Hearing aid brown, yeah. It matched Seb's jacket right there. Yeah, but I mean, and I remember I reviewed it 3 years ago or something when it first came out. And I said in my review, I'm like, the best part about owning an EQS is the interior is gorgeous and you don't have to look at it. You're just looking out at other cars. Everybody else has to look at it, and that sucks for them. But inside it's lovely, and I still think that's the case. It was fantastic on the inside. I think the stereo sounded great. The seats are, the most comfortable you're gonna find this side of a Rolls Royce. It's fantastic. And so I think from a road trip perspective, it's phenomenal.
Awesome.
And the only and I think the big thing at the end for me was when that's opened up to the supercharger network. That's going to be really interesting because it doesn't have the problems that the Lucid has, where it's high voltage and it can't charge fast, and you got to wait for the V4 substation to go. No, it's like 400 volts, 200 kilowatts. So it's like it's high amperage, but it's not crazy high. So it'll just plug in and life will be good. And once that happens, that Mercedes trip computer thing, having all the superchargers in there, it's going to be fantastic. And you won't have to go to the back end of a Walmart parking lot or a Denny's or whatever, which is not exactly Mercedes S-Class levels of quality, I think, safe to say. And the BMW is the same thing, but they have their own problems.
Yeah. Mercedes did well building a equivalent to their internal combustion engine S-Class versus the i7 really is just an i7 with a battery pack, which, So I think when you compare the two, because many people compared them, right, on terms of where the brands are segmented as well as the comfort vehicles of the trip, the EQS was definitely better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, Kyle keeps saying that I think the ADAS in the BMW is probably better, but I don't know for how long that's going to be true. But if you're going to drive it for a long distance, it doesn't matter. Like the Mercedes is where you're going to want to be, and the distance, and it was efficient too. Yeah, for being that big, it was plenty efficient. And we ended up at 3, right at 3.
I mean, the thing is, we never cut down on speed. I feel like when I was watching the videos, everyone was going 40 or 50 on the highway because they didn't want to make it, and had no AC. I mean, our average speed was 75 across the entire country.
Yeah, That slowing down thing is crazy to me. You should really only be slowing down if you screwed up and you're not going to make it. And the amount of people that were doing it, it's like, that's costing you so much time because all you had to do was spend an extra 90 seconds at the charger, and now you're losing 10 minutes an hour slowing down. What are you doing? This is nuts. The other thing that'll be interesting is that if we had the 2025 with the larger battery, could have gone even further. That starts to get even more interesting. And really, the place that's going to be good is when this thing is used in 2 years, coming off lease, and it's half the price.
A lot of good value from this car.
Yeah. I think the ironic thing, the comparison to the i7, it's not even a comparison. If you're never going to road trip, then sure, it's great. But I was shocked at that because we said at the beginning, like, that's the real comparison to this car.
Yeah, I think what was absolutely different was like the way we charge, and I think how the other cars were charging. And the fact that I don't think that it makes sense with a charging curve like the EQS had, that you do these what they call like splash and dash or charger hopping, right? I don't think there's you will not significantly reduce your trip time because you're gonna add more charging stops. And honestly, my opinion, especially with CCS, how the chargers are placed, going to all these charging stations all the time adds so much additional time to your trip. Like,
especially being 10 minutes off the highway.
Yeah, some of them, right? Like,
So here's something. I'm looking at our charge, at our departures. So how much we charged to. So we left at 100. Our first stop, we went from 15 to 83. The next two, we left at 52% and 68%. And the 68, we cut it really close because we only arrived at 2%. That was the only one that we really cut it. And I was like, I'm a little nervous here because we arrived at 1 a.m. in, where was that?
Yeah, that was me driving through the mountains too.
That was the one stressful stop. But after that, we had one we left at 63. But then, 82%, 77%, 80%, 80%, 90%, 90%, almost 100. 80%. Like we sort of figured out, okay, this car wants to be deep charged every time. And once we figured that out, I think things got a lot smoother. Versus the let's try and optimize it and leave it 59% instead of staying. It's like, no, just plug it in and leave it and relax. And, if you're 5 minutes behind them, you're fine because you're in an EQS and you don't care.
Let's kind of talk about these numbers. So average state of charge on arrival to each destination, each charger, 18.71%. So they're kind of on par with, right, that 20%.
If we take that 66 out, what does it become? I wonder.
Let's see.
Can you do that?
Sure, I can.
Because that was a fluke. 13.5.
Yeah. I think on that is, if I would do it again, that would have been my probably my improvement was leave at least. We always charge 10% over what the car usually suggested at the end, and I think we should have done maybe 3% above what the car suggested, and we would still be fine. Maybe had to reduce, had to pivot to go 5 over speed instead of 10 over speed.
And you know what part of the problem with that was? Is that the amount it told us to charge to kept disappearing. Because when the car powered itself off, it wouldn't tell us what the amount we needed to charge to. So you had to look at it and remember. And I think that was part of the problem, is that we couldn't double check unless someone stayed in the car. So
that was the
one
bug.
big annoyance that I remember from the trip, is that it would say like, oh, you need to charge to 68% and then you're good to go. And then it would forget that and it wouldn't tell you. So
yeah. And after being in the car for 35 hours, I was like,
it's like, I'm dumb capacity. Now. You need to do this for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what was it again? I have no idea. Yeah. So
but just as a comparison, the average stated state of charge on the Model 3 was 4.3%. because their predictor was rock solid because the Tesla is right on it.
I mean, look, we overcharged 10%. If you would do ours minus 10, we would have been at 4 too.
Yeah, but we had a 9%, a 2%, a 9%, a 7%, a 7% arrival. If we had shaved that much off, it would have been pretty close. So if you say we should be +3 over, I'd be like, well, maybe +5. I think +10 was good, and we just should have trusted it because we tried to leave early a few times, and that's when we got into trouble. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I sort of remember in the middle we kept trying to like shave it close, and I think there were 2 times that we had to stop early, but I can't remember honestly. But I think I felt pressure of like we're not trying hard enough because everybody else is arriving at 1%, and it was like, oh, that's how we should do it. But it took a little while for me to realize our charge curve was as flat as it was, and there really wasn't a penalty to leaving. There wasn't a huge penalty to leaving before 70%. Whereas with the Lucid and the Teslas, if you leave after 40, you've wasted so much time. If you have a charging station to get to, it's just totally different.
Honestly, I've browsed through a couple of comments, and I've seen that a lot where people say like you need to unplug immediately when the car starts to taper down, and I don't think that is true, because you really forget that there is additional time if you add more charging stops to you, right? Like you need to. It is, even if it's a really good located charger, there's probably like 5 to 10 minutes of just like transaction time, which like all getting off the highway, parking, plugging in, charge ramp up, 10 shake. That all takes time, right? Like, and like you could have just charged a little bit longer at a little lower speed, and maybe skip the charging station or
it's
charging
like
step.
If for like every minute your stop is off the highway, you should add 2 minutes after it starts to taper or something like that to make it worth it. Something, I don't know if that's like a solid number, but I'm just like,
I mean, me personally, like if the car is still charging at like 60% of your max peak power, why unplug it? It's for the EQS, if you're still charging with 120 kW, there's like no reason to unplug it. If that means keeping it 120 for a little bit longer to then skip an entire charging stop.
Yeah, and over the course of a 3,000-mile drive, we stopped 12 times. And I think only the Porsche was anywhere close to that, right? No, they stopped more than that.
It's to 15.
Yeah, the Lucid stopped more. We stopped the least, right?
Yeah, appears so.
Yeah, the BMW's data is no good because they got sick of it. But yeah, and I think that's, at the end of the day, it's like, who are we doing this test for, right? I don't think any EV nerd, and I'll put myself in that category, is going to buy an EQS for, to be like, oh, I'm going to be a hardcore EV person. They're going to buy a Tesla, they're going to buy a Lucid, they're going to buy the Porsche, and they're going to just go. The EQS is for like regular people. And I think the way it charges and the way it works and the way the computer tells you to go is the preferable way. So that's sort of my big picture conclusion of like, who are we reviewing this for?
I mean,
Seb, apparently.
I think my key learning was really like it is surprisingly easy. It's just surprisingly easy. Like it is, you just road trip in the car instead of going to a gas station. Your car tells you where to charge. Like that's the only difference. And that is, I mean, you don't need any sort of apps. You don't need to go plug share. You don't need to.
If you have the right car.
Right, I was going to mention the right car because many teams,
Tesla or Mercedes, everybody else had issues. Everybody else complained about their trip.
Well, even the Model S Plaid, they had BMS issues, which totally screwed the route planner. And so it was constantly.
If you look at their arrival numbers, it is all over the place. Yeah. Like the Model 3's arrival numbers, and even the S85, like the Model 3's arrivals. 00351357308. Like, theirs are perfect. The old Model S, they're in single digits for most of it. And then the Model S Plaid, 11, 9, 21%, 11%, 2%, 11%, 16%, 7%. Like, they're all over the place. Which shows you how much of a challenge if you're really trying to optimize it. You know, it's just tough. But, you know, like you said with the EQS, it's just you just plug it in, you don't worry about it.
Yeah.
No, that was really my biggest like insight. It was so easy, and I guess you could have made it probably a little bit faster with doing some manual optimization. I think at the end, when in retrospective, like in Oklahoma,
We didn't go to
no.
Oklahoma.
Oh my,
Yeah, I was gonna say
Ohio.
Ohio.
Ohio. Yeah, you know, I think but the risk of that is
Autobahn
you might save a little time, but you also might lose a little time if you get it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
And
you just need to get it wrong, and like you select your next charger to be a charger that has like 3 traffic lights on the way, or if you increase your frequency of charging stop, right, you have like an inherent higher risk of running into a charger that's derated or not working or something. Like, you're just increasing more risks.
Yeah, which actually on that point, because we weren't relying on having a fast charger, which is what the Ioniq, the Hyundai was, and the Lucid, and the Porsche for that matter, if we got stuck at a 150 kilowatt charger, it wasn't a big deal. It was like, oh, instead of being at 200 for a little while, we're at 150. It's not the end of the world. Whereas their big advantage was we can go over 300 for a little bit. And it counts for a lot. And then they ramp so quickly. So if we were at a 150, it was like, well, that's kind of a bummer, but okay, whatever. You know, in terms of how long we stay, it wasn't that big a deal. I would rather have a faster handshake and have it work immediately. You know, because how fast does the Tesla start charging? 8 seconds after you plug it in or something. Their handshake is so fast, and the CCS takes 30 seconds. It's like, I'd rather be at 150 and have my handshake work every time in 8 seconds than, we get up to 200 for a little bit, but it takes 45 seconds to get there. It's like, you gain and lose all over the place. And so I think that was another interesting thing about the EQS is, like, we didn't have to worry about, I hope we get a 350 and I hope it works and I hope it ramps fast. It was just like, a 150. All right. It works. Great. That's kind of a bummer. And then we go and, what do EQS drivers go do? Go eat bonbons or whatever?
Yeah, well, you're talking about food, right? The I-90 when it comes to amenities or like
the CCS chargers.
At night, like, I think I had my first solid food near Chicago somewhere.
Because there was a McDonald's, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we went to that McDonald's. Which still wasn't next to the charger. It was across the parking lot. It was a long way across the parking lot.
It was at a Sam's Club, though.
Yeah, you had some at truck stops and stuff. Those weren't bad, but
true.
They're so far off the highway. That's the big weakness there. So if only someone would build a charging network and put the charging stations in good places, that would be nice. Yeah. Maybe someone can do that.
I mean, the placement, especially in the I-90, it was a little bit off, right?
Yeah.
But
and that's something that the Tesla guys ran into too, because that was one of the first highways to get superchargers. And so there's a lot of old V2 slow superchargers on that route. And I think some of their placements were not ideal. Whereas some of the newer routes, 10 years ago, Tesla wasn't quite sure how to do this, or they didn't have the pull that they do today. And now you're putting EV chargers in, and it's like, you're going to bring in people who are going to buy stuff. I think I just saw a study, and it's something like gas stations on highways that put EV chargers in increase their sales by like 8%. Just something like that. And it's like, okay, great. I believe it.
Yeah.
Captive audience.
I'm at the Buc-ee's right now, so I can see it.
Yeah.
Go get me a t-shirt, will you?
Okay.
Actually, I have. Hold on.
I have the
cashews.
I have the
I have my I have my Gone
Barbecue
to Bucky's. I think there's my Gone to Bucky's sign.
Oh, is that for a fridge? Like a magnet?
No, it's like a
No.
wooden block,
Oh.
and so I have it on my little, my little backstop there. Gone to Bucky's, because it amused me, and it was, if Bucky's has anything, it's merch. And by the way, if you go to the description below, you can find the I-90 Surge T-shirt and buy that.
Cool.
Gotta have merch. So yeah, got my Bucky's merch.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't mind some banana pudding right now.
Before we move on, if you guys had to pick another vehicle to, sorry, no, not another vehicle, because just asked that. Sorry, I had a format of how I ask these questions, and you've been so ahead of it, Jordan. Yeah, the amenities of the EQS. So what did you guys think of the ADAS, some of the comfort features? Would you trade that for a faster vehicle? Something like as small and tight like the Porsche or even the Model 3?
I would trade it for the Tesla because the new FSD is so good. But that would be the only reason, because it's so comfy and it just takes care of you. I think the ADAS is comparable to all the other traditional car makers for sure. And so if it's any non-Tesla, I would take the Mercedes. But FSD puts it in its own little world. And if you go to my YouTube page, you can see some videos that I've made on FSD in my personal Model 3 Performance that I just bought. So I'm biased.
To kind of end us off, Sebastian, if you could help explain what happened when we got pulled over and where that's standing today, because I couldn't remember exactly, right? We got a ticket for that. Extra warning, a written warning. Okay, a written warning. Yep. Okay. Yeah, Sebastian, if you can explain what happened.
So okay, I can explain that. So it was my first stint. Like I think you both were falling asleep. Was going through. It was Montana Mountains.
Wyoming. It was Wyoming.
What was Wyoming?
It was Wyoming.
Anyhow,
freshly in.
So first drive, I was kind of excited, and I was playing around with our state of charge, and because I really wanted to dial it in at 0. So I was going up and down, and like really going to speed limit, and actually it was pretty curvy. You're like 85 would have really cut it. And we actually got pulled over for lane violation, which that's when the cop said like ultimately that's what would pull us over, and we were going too fast.
You were sitting in the left lane.
I was sitting in the left lane. Yes, because honestly,
which is particularly unacceptable for a German.
I know. That's the problem.
That's the worst part.
I've driven too much in Atlanta and in Georgia, and no gas here. Like in Germany, yes, it's shameful. But I still have the ticket. It's still at home. It's a good reminder of.
Yeah, you can get it framed. I will say that I went back, so I had my iPhone recording the trip from the back. And how long do you guys think we were actually stopped? Because it felt like an hour at the time. But I went back and I pulled the tape to see how long we were actually stopped at the side of the road. How long do you think it was?
15 minutes.
Isaiah, what do you think?
I'm like thinking back. I mean, what Sebastian said sounds about right. I don't think it was much more.
It was 8 minutes.
Okay.
That's it. It felt like forever.
Yeah, that felt very.
But
very
it was
long.
8 minutes. I went back and I'm like, I wonder, because it's like, oh, we got the thing, and it's funny because it's just Seb saying over and over, "I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry, sir. I'm very sorry.
Well,
I'm from Germany. I'm really sorry."
Forgive us.
I mean, and then
he was cool about it. It was
he was cool. He came back and he was like, "So what's the range on this one?" Like, I knew it was like, "Okay, we good." Like,
yeah, well, because he asked like, "Where are you guys going tonight?" We're like, "Boston."
He's like,
"Where'd you come from?" Yeah, he was like very suspicious. And then when we're like, "No, we're doing this thing. That's why we got 3 drivers." Okay, fine. And he was like, "Oh, you can do that in an electric car? That's cool."
I think I mentioned we're doing a race, right? Like I mentioned what what the day
Yeah,
is.
it's like, oh, we got a bunch of cars. We're all race to see which one. Yeah.
What we're supposed to not say, and then he's like, "All right, cool." So yeah, no,
Yeah, he was fine.
He was nice. He was very nice.
We're all very nice.
I think he was more confused. The license plate, he said it was a dealer plate, so it wasn't exactly connected
Oh
to
yeah,
the car.
yeah, because he tried to run the plate, right? Because it was a Mercedes press car, and it's a Georgia distributor plate, which means when you run it, it doesn't come back to a car because it's like a dealer plate. You can put it on any car you want, and it works. And so it didn't say Mercedes EQS. It just says, Mercedes USA, MB USA, something like that. And so he's like, yeah, I couldn't even run the plate anyway. So whatever, have a good day. Stay out of the left lane. Which is hilarious because I think I did a stint after that was it after that? I think it was before that. Or was it after? When did we have all the deer?
Afterwards.
Yeah,
It was after that, yeah. Because I think it was in South Dakota and we had all the deer and I was just sitting in the middle of the two lanes. I'm like straddling the middle, like white lane line to the right, like in that picture. Because there were so many deer, left side, right side. I'm like, I'm just going to go down the middle and hope for the best. And the West is very large, so it's fine. But it's like, I'm a little shocked nobody hit a deer. Because there were so many deer.
And they were huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, luckily we've got a big enough car that we could just throw it in the back with the hatchback and just throw the deer in there and, have some jerky.
Save it for later. Yeah.
Well, you get hungry on a long drive.
Yeah.
So Walmart's closed at 3 a.m. when you go to charge.
And Target is too. And that then really limits yourself to flying J gas station food.
Yeah. But I will say we did not go to a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts and waste time like some of the other teams did.
I was so jealous. I was looking. I was like,
why didn't we do that?
Yeah.
Where did they all get the food and like the coffee? It's like the only thing we had was like energy drinks and like peanuts. Like
at that grocery store and wherever it was, I got some like gummy bears or something.
Yeah, I got fruit and things like that. I think the only stop we had was the bathroom. I think Sebastian went to the McDonald's bathroom. And that was like 5 minutes, and then we were right back on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I sabotaged us with. I had to do the only additional 3-minute bathroom break.
Compared to them, that's nothing. Compared to all
considering, let's see,
Starbucks,
an hour 8.
That does make you think. If you didn't do that, would we have beaten the Model S?
We were 10 minutes behind the Model S. So between the pee break and the cop, that's it.
That's it.
But also, maybe you made up a little time.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Basically, I would say anything within an hour of each other was a tie. Honestly, after 50 hours of driving, and that to me is like that's the biggest thing is how close everybody was. Like that was amazing.
Yeah.
But we were the most comfortable, so that's all that matters. By Mercedes.
Yeah. And again, I think you could have put anyone in here. I looked at the most exciting race of the entire race was probably us against the Ioniq, right?
We kept running into them.
We kept running into them, and then I was watching their footage, and they were like at like 0%, and like the Ioniq.
They were pushing hard, and they all their stuff.
Like, it has like 20 miles range. Don't worry about it. I know. Like I've tested this many times. Like I have no idea like how much if the car was at 0-0. Like so, and they were turning off the AC, reducing speeds like gradually. We didn't do any of that.
We never did that. Yeah.
you could have literally put anyone in this car, and I think just go and follow it.
Yeah, we just set the cruise and go.
Yeah. They were consistently hitting 1%, 7%, 3%, 1%, 0%. They were really pushing it for Ioniq 6 team for a lot of the race, and we were like right there, kind of with them. And so yeah, everything within an hour of each other is really a tie. I could even look at it further, right? Would you rather be in the Model S, which, yeah, it got there 5 minutes faster, but they had a significant more times to charge, and it's not as comfortable. So, waste 5 minutes and have a more comfortable experience and less charges.
It looks like they
on the
stopped
ride away.
26 times, twice as many times. It's like it ain't worth it. Why do you want to stop that many times?
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much more distance they're driven. Did anyone accurately like measure that? Like how many miles every car has driven?
I don't know. Is that on that?
So it's in
shot?
the Excel, and I could probably put it on screen.
Well,
but
actually,
it's all
yeah,
within each other.
I
No,
mean, the
the
Tesla charts
final
are
mile
usually-
I got from Google Maps, so it's not exactly the same.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Let's see the Plaid. I'll put it here. Distance. Oh, miles per hour.
Those mileage numbers are not from their data, by the way. You have to look at
collected.
trip odometer all the way to the right, and they did not
Put
fill it
everything.
out.
Yeah, it's all a little wonky, but oh.
Yeah, we had a form. I made a form for everyone to fill out, and I should have been more specific with how to fill out the form because it was messy. The data took a lot of cleaning to get it up. But then, I mean, I think it was really cool to have it. Kyle thought it was stupid, and I think once he saw what came out at the other end, he was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Oh, it's great.
Data. Gotta have data.
Yeah. Well, awesome. We pretty much touched on all of the key points. I mean, everything from strategy to some of the numbers. I'm glad we got to talk about getting pulled over. When I learned Ionic got pulled over, I was like, oh, wow. I really thought more people would have gotten pulled over for stuff. But look, we were pushing it. We weren't going to 0% state of charge. And when I mean pushing it, we were moving at a pretty decent pace. But we were comfortable.
I don't know that we really had any truly wasted time. Like we were just sitting around.
Right. We had an objective and we hit it there. But yeah, I had a pretty great time. I don't know. I have this urge to road trip again. So I get my R1T back this week. I will be taking a bunch of road trips 2025. First one, I'll probably be going out to Out of Spec Studios in Fort Collins. But yeah, it was great spending time with you guys.
It was super fun. I'm glad we did it. And I just had to drive home, so because I live in Boston.
Yeah, simple for you. Yeah. Well, then you had to drive all the way back to Colorado.
I had to turn around and go fly to.
Yeah,
whatever. It's fine.
I mean, I did like an 1,800-mile road trip. Just a couple of weeks after that, in an F-150 Lightning, which was
how did that go?
Yeah,
not as good.
Good. No, great.
The trip planner in the Ford is pretty good, right?
Comfy car. Yeah, also the trip planner was good. I mean, you can also do the with Apple Maps.
Okay.
They have they have like a CarPlay data integration, so CarPlay knows your SoC from the car and makes the charging.
Oh, that's
up.
Cool. Yeah, I know Ford is really proud of their trip planner.
It's great. I mean, the Ford Oval, like it works. You can also charge a Tesla, which so that is. So it's a comfy, cool car. It's obviously it takes longer, right? It doesn't move. And I saw some comments online. People was like, yeah, you should have put a Silverado or something in there because it charges fast. I was like, doesn't matter. Like a pickup truck.
It's too inefficient.
Too inefficient. You're gonna need like an extra day.
Yeah, I mean, like you saw what happened to the to the BMW. I think that was the most inefficient car, right? And it
now imagine a pickup truck.
Yeah, and it doesn't charge that much better than a F-150 Lightning, and so the F-150 Lightning is going to be worse efficiency by a long way. Yeah, I actually I was at a Ford event just before we went on this trip, and I was talking to a Ford PR guy, and I mentioned that we were doing this. He's like, "Oh, do you want to take a Lightning or a Mach-E?" And I'm like, "You won't want to. It's gonna I'm like, you really don't. It'll make you look bad. You don't want to do that." And he was like, "Are you sure?" And I pulled it up at ABRP, and it was going to be 58 hours. It was going to be worse than the old Model S by by hours. And I'm like, no. He's like, okay, you're right.
Yeah, it's all about efficiency at the end. It's all about efficiency. Like efficiency is really king on long distance trips.
Yeah, which is part of why that Model 3.
Yeah.
Right.
So impressive.
So impressive.
Yeah. So.
Awesome.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day to talk about everything EQS i90 Surge. I will have Jordan and Sebastian's links to anything. You guys just send me them. I'll have them in the description.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, if you guys have
Comment down below.
Comment,
Sorry.
if you have any questions, I'll feel free to answer and reach back out to the guys over here. But thank you guys so much for watching. Right after this, I'll be doing the Acura, so we'll get to ask all of the really crazy questions as to what they were doing. Do you guys have any questions for Team Acura?
Why? Where would I thought they were doing donuts somewhere. Where's the footage?
Really?
Yeah.
I will tell you that at the very end, I was the one who parked all the cars for the beauty shot at the end, and their car did not smell good.
Okay.
And
I drove it a little too, and I was like, we had the windows down. So
yeah, it was not good. But the Mercedes has a scent that it sends through the HVAC to make the car smell nice. I never that car, and that's actually an interesting point. Is like 3 guys in a car for 2 days straight. Like, you would expect something, little bit of funk, and I didn't have that at all in the Mercedes.
No.
It smelled great.
And the HVAC, and that HEPA filter and whatever, like everything in there. That it does add to and with the ionization, so much stuff.
Yeah, I'm half joking about it, but also no, the Mercedes really does a really good job keeping it clean and smelling nice, and the little scent bucket thing that goes in the glove box is great.
Yeah, it does add of well-being.
Do you have that in your car you're in right now?
It probably, yeah.
Reach over there and grab. You got to show the people.
Yeah.
In the glove box.
You mean like that?
Yeah. What flavor is it?
I can't even. Mimosa. Oh.
Wow.
Okay.
Does it smell good?
What did we have?
I don't know. Freshness or something.
Does your car have a air freshener? Ask that next time you're making a car purchase. Yeah.
I mean, for $110,000, it should. I bet the BMW does. I don't think the Lucid does.
No, I don't think the Lucid does.
Anyway, there you go.
Awesome.
So, if you want comfort and to smell nice, EQS.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Yes. Again, links in the description. Comment, like. This is the I-90 Surge debrief with Team EQS, and we will see you guys in the next one.